welcome to the Fantasy Rewind Podcast. I am your co-host, Dylan Stoll, and I'm joined as always by my friend, Michael Whifford.
Hey.
So today, we are talking about House of the Dragon, episode 6, which is titled...
Princess and the Queen. I almost said another word there.
So it's actually really fitting that this is titled The Princess and the Queen because of the replacement of the actresses, which we'll talk about shortly. So before we get into that, just going to give out a few reminders here. If you want to get in contact with the show, you can send us an email, which is fantasyrewindpod@gmail.com. You can send us some messages on Twitter or tag us on Twitter, which is @fantasyrewind. And if you want to get at us on Instagram, that is @fantasyrewindpod there as well. All right, so Mike, before we get into anything else here, do we have any other announcements to make?
Yeah, so just a reminder that this is like the last day or two. We'll be doing the drawing for our giveaway on October 1st, which is this Friday, and announce the winner on our social media platforms on October 3rd, which happens to be my birthday. So kind of putting a nice little bow on that. So please, check out our socials, enter there. We're giving away a book, your choice, The Silmarillion, The Sandman Volume 1, Preludes and Nocturnes, the Wheel of Time series, Book 1, The Eye of the World, Elizabeth Markin's Perilous Star, and
Fire and Blood by George R. R. Martin.
I was going to say House of the
Dragon.
Dragon.
Which is the inspiration for House of the Dragon. Yes.
So yeah, get us on those. But now let's jump on into this episode because I'm really excited to talk about it.
All right, so without further ado, let's jump on into the rewind.
Fantasy Rewind.
All right, Mike, go for it. What are your thoughts on this episode overall?
So, first and foremost, I started watching this episode while I was kind of doing some work. So I had it up going, and I was just like, okay, let me just, while it's getting started here, let me just finish up this, paper I'm looking at. And all of a sudden the noises start, and it's very dark, and I was like, what's going on here? And then we open up to Rhaenyra giving birth, and I was like, oh my gosh. The noises, the sound effects they used for all that were startling, to say the least, which, typical Game of Thrones passion. But Rhaenyra is much older. We've had our time jump, and she is now giving birth to her third son.
Yeah, her third son with brown hair.
So let's just get it right out of the way. Obviously, these are Strong's, I don't remember his first name.
Harwin
Strong's children, and not her husband's. Laenor's. And it's so funny because everyone knows about it, and it's just talked about all episode from everyone, but no one comes right out and says it because of how much shame that would bring and how the king just has a blind eye to it.
Yeah, how the king is willfully ignorant that Rhaenyra's children are all bastards, that they're all Harwin Strong's children, and not Laenor Valerian's, because as you see, the queen throws that barb right at Laenor, being like, keep on trying, Sir Laenor, maybe one day the next one will look like you.
After she makes, she calls for the baby to be brought to her right after Rhaenyra gives birth. It's what the heck is wrong? I knew their relationship wasn't in the best place, but from when we last saw them to now, it's deteriorated to a point where she just doesn't even care.
No, it's open hostility between the two right now.
Which seems so unwarranted. What happened to bring it to this?
So what happened was you had Alicent feeling like she was betrayed by Rhaenyra.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so...
Sorry.
What happened in the last episode is what happened.
But it was just so small.
In our minds, yes. In their minds, apparently not. Because what has happened, and they haven't mentioned these terms yet, but I'm wondering if they will coming up here, is that there are two factions within the Red Keep. There's the Blacks, which are the people that are loyal to the princess, and there's the Greens, which are the people that are loyal to the queen. who, again, being from Old Town, was wearing the green dress. That's why she gets her name, the Greens. So you have these two factions going in here, and this like open hostile confrontation is going on in every aspect of their courtly lives, down from the sparring that their children are doing to the one of Allison's children being mocked for not having a dragon and being given a pig who's like dressed up as a dragon, to just like the hostility that Allison greets Rhaenyra with
Yeah.
making her basically bring her very newborn baby all the way to her. And I like how Rhaenyra's like, you want to take my child? Well, guess what? I'm coming to you. I'm not leaving my boy alone with you for 1 minute. And so she walks all the way there, still bleeding from giving birth, and just guts it out in what had to have been an insanely painful experience for her.
All the while, King Viserys is just like, oh, look at this. We're all a happy family. Like,
Yeah.
no, dude. Read the room.
As much as I've liked Viserys in the past episodes, I feel like you are clearly seeing the as much as I've liked Viserys in the past couple episodes, I feel like you're clearly seeing both his physical deterioration as well as his mental deterioration.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just seeing right now in this episode where he's basically being told, go play with your toys, build your model city, leave everyone else to govern, because we don't value what you can bring to the table right now because you're so unaware and because you're so incompetent right now that you cannot contribute. Mm-hmm. And so like you see the whole small council, Queen Alicent and Princess Rhaenyra included, doing everything. And just the king is sitting there smiling like a creepy old man who is looking more and more like Gollum every day.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. Didn't want to get there yet, but we're there, so let's just talk about it. It was towards the end where they were in the small council together, and I like that this time you see Rhaenyra there. She has a place at the table. She's sharing her opinion, which makes a lot of sense. And yet, every time she says anything that's sane or that's reasonable, the queen is immediately just like, oh, this again. Oh, okay. And it's just, again, I just want to know, outside of the little, like, her not telling her that she slept with Kristen Cole, which, by the way, she's okay with, apparently, because she's hanging out with him like he's a bestie. Like, she's so upset about all that, but I don't know. There's just things that just don't add up. Obviously, she's salty about her dad getting kicked out. That's fine. And she's apparently grown to resent the princess quite a bit.
Very much so, yeah.
Sure, having Kristen Cole, who, by the way, still loves her.
Does he, though? I think
the
that
way he's talking about her. What'd you say?
I said, I don't think he loves her. I think he loathes her.
Wow.
And, like...
Why?
Because he got spurned. Because I've seen so many people saying, like, Kristen Cole is, like, the epitome of an incel. And I'm just like, oh my god. And I'm just like, this is so ridiculous. They've really taken who is this noble, honor-bound character and, like, turned him into a dismissed, spurned lover who is wanting to get back at his former mistress.
Yeah, and they only did it, like, once.
Yeah. One time, fell in love. She wouldn't give up the world for him.
Yeah, and he's celibate now, so he's like, my one taste, and it's gone. And now I have to stare at you. But I thought it was interesting. They did some really neat things in this episode. So throughout the episode, you sort of see it's like a slow progression of the deterioration between the princess and the queen, ultimately resulting in Princess Rhaenyra leaving and going to Dragonstone, where her uncle once resided.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout the episode, you see the relationship between her kids and the queen's kids. And honestly, like, they seem to get along okay. Like, when they were in the dragon pit, like, yes, they were making fun of one of the queen's kids. Yes, which, by the way, Aegon totally just, like, knows he can just blame everything on Rhaenyra's kids.
Oh, yes.
And his mom will eat it up.
Yep.
And Which, by the way, her walking in and he's just sitting there going out the window, which was a nice callback to the Game of Thrones scene where the Joffrey's kid, or
Joffrey's brother
jumped out the window. Felt like it was the same window.
It probably was.
And he was just sitting there wanking it. And she's just like, I don't care what you're doing there with that. Just tell me who did this.
Tell me bad stuff about Rhaenyra's children.
Yes, I just need any excuse to hate them more. Oh, it was them. It was them.
Yeah. I think what actually happens when she's talking with Laris Strong later on, what she says is very true. It's like, I don't care that my father was biased. I care that he wasn't there that he's not being biased towards me.
Yes. She's very much a petulant child right now.
Yes. Like, her and Rhaenyra's role is almost kind of flipped, where now Alicent is like the bitter one.
Oh yeah. And so that's an interesting comparison to draw up. I didn't even think about it that way, but that makes a lot of sense. Their roles have reversed. Man, it stinks to be the Hand of the King, though. I will say that after this episode.
Oh yeah.
So we'll continue on here. The kids, they get along all right, and Kristen Cole is just looking for any opportunity to show distaste.
To shame Rhaenyra and her children.
Yes, and so when they're out practicing and he's leading the practice between Rhaenyra's kids and Alicent's kids, he, is showing favoritism by giving feedback and fighting Alicent's kids and not giving any attention to Rhaenyra's. And Commander Strong brings that up, aka their father, like, hey, why are you showing this favoritism? He's like, okay, fine. And then he tells the oldest, Aegon, to beat up Rhaenyra's oldest, which is not even much of a match. Like, there's like a 10-year gap there. And Aegon's, just taking it to him. And then he's telling him to fight dirty and, like, giving him step-by-step instructions on how to beat the crap out of this kid. And it's just like, what are you doing, dude? I don't know.
Yeah. Not liking Sir Kristen Cole right now. He's definitely a bit of a weenie.
I'm sure by the end he'll have some kind of redemption, I guess. Whatever.
I mean, it's Game of Thrones world, so, like, you're going to see nastiness, like, given to everybody.
Yeah.
We'll see if Kristen Cole gets his just desserts or not, though. So the next part that really happens, and I think it's interesting, is because of that scene you talked about, Harwin Strong beats the crap out of Sir Kristen Cole.
Oh, yeah, very much.
Basically gets himself banished.
Yeah, very much reminiscent of what Kristen Cole did to the Knight of Kisses.
Yeah, yeah.
Except,
Mr. Joffrey.
He didn't take it quite as far, even though he should have.
Yeah, yeah. But one thing I thought that was very interesting about this is it results in pretty much everybody saying, yeah, we know that Rhaenyra's kids aren't actually her husbands. We know that they're actually Harwin Strong's kids. But we're going to keep it an open secret. Yeah. And the Hand of the King tries to resign without telling Viserys the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. He will not tell him why he wants to resign, but he just wants to.
Because that would... And you could see, like, Alicent was just like, say it. Say it so I can just kill him.
Right. She was waiting. Her eyes were wide as could be. They were saucers. She was waiting for it.
Oh, and then we get the snake in the grass, a.k.a. New Littlefinger.
Yes.
Man, if you ever just want to punch a person in Game of Thrones, it's this guy. Like, what did your family ever do to you for you to go out and do this? So, just to jump ahead here, the Harfoots basically leave.
The Harfoots?
No, not the Harfoots. Sorry. Getting series confused here. The Strongs end up going back to their ancestral home,
which is Harrenhal.
Which I remember in Game of Thrones was said to be cursed and...
Yes, so Harrenhal actually was built by Harren the Black, and basically all of his descendants that had it, like, died. And so it's been this big, fancy castle that everyone's been being, like, gifted because no one that could inherit it is left alive. So they all die. And so the Strongs have been gifted Harrenhal, and the Hand of the King is the technical lord of Harrenhal. And he's like, oh, Harwin, you're going to come back with me to Harrenhal. You're going to stay, though, and you're going to be the new Lord of Harrenhal. Meanwhile, he is actually the younger son of the two brothers here. Because you have
Oh,
Lars, and that's why he's bitter. Because
okay.
he is the older, crippled son who's going to get passed over for everything.
Oh my gosh. Really? Okay. So that I was going to say like why would he want to kill his dad and his brother, but apparently it's just because of some petty nonsense like this. And I'm
Well, I
sure
mean,
like his whole life
yeah,
he's been passed over and there's
exactly.
this whole sad tale. Oh, I'm sorry you have to live at court, drink all the wine you want and do whatever you want to people. And you can apparently tell guards to take out people's tongues for no reason and you have some position of power, but you know what? Go ahead and order these people to kill your dad and your brother because the queen wished it, quote
Right.
unquote.
How bitter do you have to be to order that to happen? And like how
Yeah.
brutal do you have to be to cut out all those people's tongues?
Oh, he
And
didn't do it.
then
He just
oh, he
watched
didn't
it
do it
happen.
himself. He just watched. Yeah, but still, like
Well,
that
that's what I'm
was
saying.
pretty
Like
brutal.
this was one of the issues I had with this episode though. Was like I was like, okay, I can get there and see maybe why you want to do this, but at the same time, there's been nothing said or done to you from your brother or your dad to warrant you to just want to kill them.
Yeah, yeah,
Like you saying that about him being passed over, okay, that's neat, but I don't know if that was mentioned.
yeah. I'm not positive if it was mentioned either, but I'm fairly certain that's the whole deal with it.
I was really upset
But
about him
one
dying, by the way.
I was too. I was like, that's one of the few good people in Game of Thrones, or House of the Dragon. I'm sorry, and we know what happens to people in this universe.
I know.
Good people get smacked upside the head until they're evil or they die.
Yeah.
And one thing I'll say as
Except for
well
Jon Snow.
is, except for Jon Snow, who just got banished.
But hopefully another series coming soon for him.
Hopefully, I'm excited for that. If it
I don't know.
happens,
I can't see if there's any like legit information on it or not.
but we'll find out. But sticking with our
Yeah.
current House
Sorry.
of the Dragon episode here, one thing I think that he did it for was to get the queen into his debt. As
Oh
far as
yeah.
like doing this without her asking it, doing this to get her father, who's going to come back as the Hand of the King, into his debt, and just kind of secure his own position at court, being like, "Hey, you owe me one, guys. What you gonna do for your boy, Mr. Strong over here?"
Mm,
And yeah, I think that all in all, he definitely is the new Littlefinger. You said it perfectly.
yeah. So now at the end there, I know we're missing a storyline, but we'll get to that one in just a minute. Now we have, you know, basically Princess Rhaenyra is like, yeah, we gotta leave.
We gotta bounce. Gotta get out of
Things
here.
aren't going our way. My boo just got kicked out. Pretty sure we're gonna have some people try to kill us here. So her and Leonor end up leaving and going to Dragonstone, which I think is a really interesting move because I feel like it's going to cause some issues as we move forward here.
Definitely will.
Her
Yeah.
not being at court, because pretty much she's just left it to Aegon and all the snakes to just keep encircling her dad.
Right. And so something I think that's important to keep in mind here as well is that she told her husband that he can bring his new boy toy with him
Oh yeah,
to Dragonstone because she's like, we're gonna need all the swords we can get. Basically,
yeah.
she knows this is going to come down to a fight for the Iron Throne,
Which at the
and
same
she's starting to
time,
prepare for it now.
why do you care so much about this that you would be willing to just kill all these people? Like Aegon, I felt this was, like he was right. He was just like, I don't want to challenge her,
Yeah,
and
right?
she's like, you will have to. And it's like, no. If more people just had that mentality, like there wouldn't be all this killing. But again, I know Game of Thrones needs action stuff, but you know, the part of me that's just like, he's right. Oh, can we talk though? Let's rewind just a little bit to where we were at the Dragon Pit. I loved that. I loved being able to see some of that training and some of that explained. Like that was so cool.
Yeah, that was really nice.
And I thought that was just such a nice scene into kind of the backstory there. And it makes me wonder a lot of things about what's going to happen because you know, like they're not going to want this kid to take. Maybe they will take the dragon in training with them or not. I don't know, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens with those dragons and those dragon eggs because a lot of emphasis was put on that in this episode.
Yeah, where like Aemon could not have a dragon egg hatch for him, so he doesn't have a dragon technically yet. But we'll see if that remains the case or if he gets one later on down the line.
Yeah, there was some conflicting things as we switch over to Daemon and his late wife.
Well, yeah, by the time this episode's over, his late wife, Lena Valerian.
Yes. So they are in...
They're in Pentos, which is over in, like, across the Narrow Sea.
Yes.
Kind of like where Daenerys starts off.
Yes. And so it's kind of cool. Like, I feel like Daemon needed this, man. He just needed a vacation,
he really did.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that's why in this episode he was like, I don't want to go back. I kind of want to just take their deal. You know, it's straightforward. They give us money. We give them some, a big stick.
We use our dragons.
Yeah. And, she's like, I want to go home and all this. And he's like, I don't want to go back to the political intrigue because I think he knows he goes back, he's getting sucked in.
Yeah, 100% does.
And so it makes me wonder, too, like you talk about the three-headed dragon, like if he went back, would he side with Rhaenyra? Would he make his own claim? Or would he side with Aegon? And knowing Daemon, he would want to side probably with himself or Rhaenyra. He doesn't probably care about Aegon at all.
No, not at all. Not at all.
But he also doesn't really carry a big stick with him outside of his dragon.
I mean, he has his dragon. He has his Valyrian steel sword, Dark Sister, and he's like this famous warrior. But other than that, he doesn't really have much going on. And I agree with you. I feel like seeing Daemon take this vacation, have a family, it was all good for him. Like, this was the episode where Daemon wasn't a dick. And it's funny that you can say that because every other episode he's been shady as can be. This episode, he's been fairly reasonable.
Yeah, and it was really neat seeing him with his family and kind of like his interaction with them. I just wish we had gotten maybe a little bit more of that before the tragedy, I
agree with you. I do agree with you. I think that seeing Lena Valerian die the way she did was very interesting because you hear her say,
foreshadowing.
Mm-hmm. I want to die a dragon rider's death. I don't want to die in the child bed.
And I love that they had this scene because it was very much parallel to what happened to his brother.
Yeah, call back to episode 1.
Instead of trying to save the kid, he's just like, he gave her the decision, apparently.
Yeah.
And she chose to die. She's like, you know what? I'm not going to save the kid. Just kill me with fire. And I've seen so many memes where it's like her dragon, oh my gosh, what's it called?
Vhagar,
yes. Vhagar's like a person holding a gun, like crying. It's like Vhagar. Dracarys. It's like, no.
It's like
Dracarys.
the Carol.
All right, you asked for it. Ah!
Carol from Walking Dead. Look at the flowers. Look at the flowers.
Yeah.
When she kills the little girl.
Oh gosh, I never watched Walking Dead.
Oh,
and I do not have
brutal.
any plans to watch it, so don't worry about that one. Not a huge fan of zombie. Shout out to the Reanimated podcast. Not a huge fan of zombies typically, but I do plan on checking out The Last of Us, which is.
Oh, me too. Definitely looking forward to that.
Anyway.
Sticking here, though, with Daemon and Lena Valerian, you see Lena die.
Yeah.
And so now Daemon is twice a widower.
Yeah.
And
once by choice and...
Once by choice, once by fate. Yeah. But I think that it's pretty clear that Daemon's going to be heading back towards Westeros next episode.
Yeah.
Just a matter of where he settles down. My money...
Driftmark.
Your money's Driftmark? My money is Dragonstone.
With Rhaenyra?
With Rhaenyra, yeah. But
interesting.
I say that because I feel like he doesn't have any ties to Driftmark. His children do. Well, maybe he will go to Driftmark because
yeah. But you bring up a good point because something that his wife said to their daughter, the one who doesn't have a dragon, was that she had to like take hers.
Yep. So what can happen in the world of Ice and Fire basically is that sometimes you won't have a dragon egg hatch for you, but you can claim somebody's dragon that is like their rider's dead.
Oh.
So like Vagar is actually an old dragon. That's why you see like how massive it is and
Yeah.
also how old it is. So like that's where Lena was saying she claimed Vagar when she was 15
Hmm.
and didn't have a dragon and hatched for herself. So I think one of her one daughter there will claim a
Vagar.
dragon, either Vagar or another dragon that does not have a rider yet.
So I was wondering about that because I was thinking about if they do go to Dragonstone, her claiming one of Rhaenyra's kids' dragons, the one there that he's still trying to train.
Mm.
Since technically he's not like quite its master.
Yeah, he's not its full master yet. They made that point very clear.
So, I feel like they're doing that for a reason. They definitely built up the whole dragon situation here, quite a bit. So I think we're going to see some of that. Also, King Viserys doesn't have a dragon, does he?
I don't think he does. No, I don't think he's a dragon rider.
Yeah.
So, all in all, though, that kind of wraps up everything that happened on this episode with a few exceptions.
One last little thing I want to bring up is at the end. So every episode here we've seen a rat, right?
That's very true, yeah.
And then this time, it's the first time that King Viserys actually sees them, like, in his presence. And I think this is really just heralding, like, his sickness and his disease has slowly been there, getting closer and closer and closer. Mm. And now it's like he recognizes, like, yeah, it's here. And I assume he's going to die next episode.
So, yeah, what I was going to say is that my bet will be that either this next episode or the one after that, Viserys actually dies.
Next episode.
I feel like everyone's been calling for his death for like 3 episodes.
Well, I know, but to be fair, the last episode did have him kind of
dropping dead almost.
Looked like it.
Yeah.
Until you saw the preview and him looking like Smeargle. Smeagol. Sorry, Smeargle's a Pokemon.
Definitely look like Smeagol.
Yes.
Oh, God. But yeah, so I think that's all we got for this episode here.
Yeah.
All in all, I thought this episode was really pretty good. I enjoyed the new actors and actresses. I thought that...
miss the old ones, thoh.
Yeah, again, that's what I'm going to say.
Mm-hmm. I feel like they did a good job of really capturing their essence,
Yeah, I thought that the old actors and actresses will be missed, particularly the actress that played Daenerys and Alicent.
Yeah.
But that the new actresses, they're all looking fairly well so far and looking like some strong people. I thought that the transition was better than I expected it to be. I think that this did act as like a mid-season reset for the show, but it felt organic from the last episode. Like you said, it didn't feel like to me there was anything we missed in between that jump forward.
Outside of how bad like the princess and the queen's relationship has gotten, like the catalyst for that.
Right. But I mean, you're still seeing in this episode how bad it is, and
yeah, I'm just saying how it got from there to there.
Yeah,
again, those have been little events and holding, and I wish there maybe had been just little snippets here and there of like, oh, she did this or they did this or and then maybe it could just be like strong sort of in the background orchestrating some of these happenstance events to help deteriorate the relationship farther.
Yeah.
But anyway, I agree. All in all, great episode and looking forward to the rest of the season.
All right. Well, without any farther ado, this is going to be Two Nerds signing off. See ya.
R.I.P. How strong. Living forever. Little Toe.